Welcome to In Frame Out's Year in Film, where we take stock of 12 months of spectacular cinema and unfortunate rubbish. Let's face it, most of 2020 has been a rapidly collapsing quantum singularity of garbage, where every day gave us another new thing to be frightened or frustrated about. Luckily, I was able to distract myself by hunkering down with some terrible nonsense, wrapped up in a blanket, and wallowing in the recesses of cinematic runoff and time-wasting rubbish. Having separated the cack-handed chaff from the wonderful wheat, here are entries 10 through 6 of our worst films of 2020. Vin Diesel is good at exactly one thing, and that's acting as a slab of beef-packed drywall to withstand the punches and put-downs of his more charismatic co-stars. This adaptation of a lore-rich but admittedly silly comic book series that I actually read the complete run of and like quite a bit, plays out like a bad Call of Duty cutscene, while its wholly disengaged supporting cast, including a positively befuddled Guy Pearce, deliver every wooden word with all the conviction of a Tom Clancy novel read aloud by sock puppets. Utilising exactly zero of the quirks that gave the source material its meathead bravado, what we get is a bloodless, tiresome snooze. The third act edition of the year's most insufferable sidekick feels like a studio note accidentally plastered to the screen that reads in all caps, "We need more jokes, but don't make them funny." This is one Vin Diesel vehicle that can't overcome its shoddy construction or outrun its ineptitude. Bloodshot is a slashed tyre of a once promising concept, helplessly spinning out but never quite sparking into an enjoyable flaming wreck. Instead, we just have to sit back and watch as it drifts off-road, only to stall in the muck and mire of subpar superhero sludge.
Rocky Balboa style.
The only reason this isn't higher up the list is that my expectations were lower than zero, and I somehow managed to make it to the end credits. I'll admit there is a part of my immature lizard brain that initially felt something akin to a 3-beer buzz from the parade of 90s Adam Sandler movie cameos and callbacks to the likes of Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison. And in a year without traditional Halloween, there is something quaint about watching some costumed festivities, but as for the actual movie itself, Hubie Halloween feels like a cruel, contemptuous trick after the unhinged treat of uncut gems. Lazy, unimaginative, and absent anything within 100 miles of an actual joke, for the remainder of this entry, I'm gonna take the Adam Sandler route and just resort to an insufferable, ear-grating comedy voice.
Oh, it's a Hubie Halloween!
Now imagine that for nearly 2 hours, and keep in mind he got paid more money than any of us will ever see. Time travel is a tough nut to crack. It's about finding a balance between the believable and the logical leaps required to allow storytelling to function amongst theoretical physics. 2067 stumbles out the gate when it comes to the science, and never finds a compelling or coherent narrative to negate just how monumentally dumb it is. In the opening moments, the audience is informed that all plants and trees are long since dead. Humans rely on something called synthetic oxygen to breathe, and the plan here is to head 400 years into the future to find a cure for the environment. If that immediately leaves you wondering, 1. Without any flora whatsoever, how are they still able to make food, fabrics, etc.? 2. You can't just swap out O2 with something else and have it be breathable. 3. Wouldn't it make more sense to go back in time and establish green initiatives at the dawn of industry, rather than heading into an unknown future with no real plan? And 4. Wouldn't humans be killed off by carbon monoxide in the air long before plant life? Congratulations, you have a functioning brain. Beyond its moronic plot, which concludes with a character literally calling the gibberish world-saving solution a deus ex machina, its occasionally impressive digital vistas are immediately offset by laughably ropey sets and obvious sound stages, wonky performances, and a score that sounds like an assemblage of royalty-free placeholders. 2067 is a real bad time. This American remake of an American remake, but also kind of sequel to the Japanese Ju-On series, left me aching for an ice-cold shower, if only to wake me from the grudge's yawning, tedious stupor. If it weren't for the incessant, paper-cut to the eardrum blasts of sound that accompany each tactless attempt at a jump scare, I'd at least have been able to credit this dour retread as background noise for an afternoon nap. Its supernatural setup wouldn't make sense if you suspended your disbelief from a crane, which is only compounded by its needless non-linear structure that feels like the editing was set to shuffle while the production team went out to score some blow. An undeniably talented cast are left twisting in the wind by the expository cement they're forced to shovel over a fractured screenplay, until they're ultimately left with nothing to do but stare moist-eyed into the middle distance as they wait for the paycheck to clear. The grimy sets and lashings of decomposing flesh can't outstench what lurks in wait. An accumulation of brownish mold, growing on outdated ideas that couldn't scare a 6-year-old.
I've seen motherfuckers skinned alive, dipped in acid, arms and legs chainsawed off, rolling around like a seal pup crying for mama.
David Ayer is more than capable of creating motion pictures that don't make me want to gnaw through my kneecaps. Fury was as savage and unsanitized as a film about WW2 tank combat needs to be. End of Watch was an exhilarating and character-driven found footage-style police procedural. The Tax Collector, well, it's more in line with the Ayer work you'll probably know and loathe. Carelessly smeared with the same old racial stereotypes and gangland tropes that have marked his more groan-inducing efforts, this has all the substance and Latin authenticity of your racist uncle wearing a sombrero and blacking out drunk on an ice rink. With hideous cinematography, Shia LaBeouf in full cultural appropriation mode, and a script that is remarkably self-serious for such a complete joke, the highest praise you could give this nasty, nakedly cynical dumpster dive is that it isn't as bad as Suicide Squad or Bright. But considering that relative to their budgets, those are two of the worst films of the 21st century, I wouldn't count that as a thumbs up. So that was entries 10 through 6 of our worst films of the year. Make sure to keep up with the rest of our lists over on the channel, and tune in next week for entries 6 through 1 of the best films of 2020. A shout out to our Patreon producers Jennifer C, Claire MD, Becky O, and Nicholas Lair Revere, and all the love in the world for these amazing folks who support us over on Patreon. Did you manage to catch any of these turkeys? And if you did, how did you find them? What are your personal least favourite films of 2020? Is there anything I missed? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure you subscribed, like, hit the bell, all that blah blah blah. It all helps to prevent YouTube burying this channel, and if you're in a position to do so, we'd love it if you checked out our Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month you can get your name in the credits, additional content, access to our private Discord, and a membership to the In Frame Out Film Club. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, this is In Frame Out.